because it isn't enough to talk about the Switch 2 and the sales of Switch 2 games. You also have to account for Switch 1 games. And that is the big, like, gaping hole in the argument when it comes to, like, Nintendo and when it comes to these fuckers. Like, the Switch 2 is not just going to make the Switch 1 obsolete. You know, if you already own a Switch 1, if you're not ready to upgrade yet, if you can't afford it, like, you're still going to be buying and playing Switch 1 games. Okay, these guys have been very brazenly kind of ignoring the reality of the situation. Is that if Nintendo sells people on a Switch 1 game, they do indeed make money off of that. You know, like, the entire code that people have that the Switch 2 would never be able to live up to the Switch 1, that people wouldn't upgrade to a Switch 2, that Nintendo would fail. It just completely failed to account for the fact that if you're the sort of person who is regularly buying and playing games on your Switch 1 and you love Switch 1, then logically, obviously, you are going to be interested in eventually picking up a Switch 2. Like, this shouldn't be complicated. This isn't something that should be, like, have to be brought up. You know, like, the vast backlog of, like, you know, Switch 1 releases, you know, the NSO games. Like, you still see people try and tell you that, like, well, at some point, Nintendo's going to get rid of Nintendo Classics, and they're going to have to drip feed all these games to you again. That hasn't happened, okay? Like, again, there are these so many, like, obvious things that the gaming industry is, like, trying to put out there that aren't really all that true. You know, among them, you know, this idea that the Switch 2 existing somehow, like, instantly makes the Switch 1 irrelevant. That is not true. That is never going to be true. That is completely ridiculous. But they can't bring themselves to face it. You know, they can't bring themselves to face it that the Switch 1 is, first of all, the best-selling console of all time now. The PS2 numbers are fake. That people love the Switch, that these things are going to be floating around for 10, 20 years, probably longer if we're going by, like, you know, people I know who still own, like, 30-year-old N64s, including myself, my beloved N64.